Now, from the 5th floor Cumulus Studios in downtown Dallas, it's time for Inside Real Estate. Here's your host, Michael Kruizinga.
Hey, good morning, Dallas. Welcome to your Sunday. Time for Inside Real Estate. You know, we're here every Sunday morning, 8 to 9 a.m. Got a nice real estate show for you. We got Richard Tonica here in the studio. We're going to do some insurance talk this morning. We're going to do a little talk with Supreme Lending's Terry Wagner, and then, of course, our resident expert in all things legal, Mr. Perry Cockrell's here in the studio as well. So we got our legal analysis segment coming up here in the show as well, and, of course, author of Private War, and which we've talked about before, available on Amazon. Well, we got lots of things going on out there. You know, I just got back, was out of town for a little bit, went down to Panama, and got to go up on the Lake Gatun, and we actually stayed way north of Panama City. We stayed in Gamboa, which is about an hour north of Panama City.
Every time I hear about your travels, I think, oh my goodness, Mike's got such a hard life.
Well, yes. Well, we had fun. We had a good time,
which is what you should be doing.
Yes. Had a good time. Gamboa, about an hour north of Panama City, and it was when we got there. I had booked the travel voucher in advance, and they were not there with the sign saying, you know, Mr. K. And we wandered around in the airport for 20 minutes trying to find these folks. And we talked to some of the other guys there. They're like, oh, yeah, they're usually wearing yellow, you know, but we don't see any of them here. They helped us look around. So we ended up taking this taxi. And so it's about 8 o'clock at night, so it was dark. And so the taxi we had, the headlights really didn't work very well. And so we're going up those mountainous roads into the rainforest. And, of course, it's raining and thundering and whatnot. And also his wipers didn't work. And so nothing like going up these roads that you can't hardly see anything. You don't know if you're going to fall off the side of the cliff, you know, through the brush on the side or what. And, wipers didn't work. And so every time a car was coming towards us, he slammed on his brakes and went down to like 10, 15 miles an hour because he couldn't see. And, you know, we couldn't see either from the back seat. We're just like holding on like, okay. Yeah, we're going to die in a taxi. Great.
We made it all the way here. So how many times did you sing Van Halen while you were down there?
Yeah, I sang it a lot, yeah. I think Lisa got tired of it by the end of the trip. Panama. Had a good time. It was really cool. It was a good spot. Enjoyed it.
That's one of the places that me and my wife want to visit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would go back, and because we didn't really see Panama City, so I think we would go back and maybe see the city, and then also see maybe the Miraflores locks, because we were even farther up north of that, so we didn't get to see those locks. But we saw the locks that were up near the lake, and got to cruise up around the lake, and got to fly by those huge Panamax ships, and those things are just so massive. It's pretty good time. So I had some fun. Here's a little bit of information I thought I'd throw at you. Just why not? 48 miles is how long it is. And the French were working on it, of course, before we came in, and then we finished it off. And France started working on it in about 1880, 1881. Then we came in 1904, took it over. Took us about 10 years to get it done. So pretty interesting. Colombia originally had control of Panama, and Panama got its independence during that whole time frame when we were building the canal down there. So that is pretty interesting as well. It costs about $100,000, anywhere between $100,000 to over $1 million to just one way to get through there. So,
what?
Yeah, for one ship to get through there, anywhere between $100,000 to over $1 million is what the shipping lanes pay. Or shipping companies pay to get through there.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, can you believe that? And, of course, 99, we lost it because of the Carter treaties. Yep. So there you go. Just a little bit of interesting information there on the Panama. What else is going on out there? Let's do a little bit of headlines here. We got time for that? We got a little bit of time for some headlines. What were you going to say, Richard?
Nothing. We were just
You-
talking about the Lochte situation
Oh yeah,
right before we came on air.
Yes, we were talking about that, and was trying to figure that out. And I guess it's probably more complicated than we were thinking. At first, he came out and said they were getting robbed, and I think maybe the media just kind of ran with that story. And then he kind of brought that back. Here's what happened, but the security guard did have the gun. He did have to pay some money. It was just a weird situation.
Well, like I was telling you, it makes no sense to me. I can kind of understand Lochte just kind of getting caught in a lie, but the friends going along with it, it's like not a chance.
Right.
If you want to do that, that's your business. You're a grown man.
Mm-hmm.
But there is absolutely no way I'm going along with you.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense at all. And I got a sense that early on when we heard the story, that the media just really wanted to run with it because they were trying to. Seemed like they were kind of promoting this angle that Rio was unsafe outside of Olympic Village, and kind of that whole thing. So it probably didn't help that they just kind of maybe overblew the story to begin with. Hard to say, but. Well, what else is going on? We talked a couple weeks ago to Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters about Turkey and the attempted coup over in Turkey, and then the continuation of basically Erdogan pulling anybody and everybody into jail, all the criminals they've released from jail there to put in political prisoners. Latest thing I saw over there in Turkey was that there's unconfirmed reports that we've moved some of our nukes from Incirlik, which had lost power there for a while. One of the bases we have there, and we had lost power there for a while. And they were thinking, okay, well, you know what? Maybe our nukes aren't safe there. And so there's unconfirmed reports, and I want to stress unconfirmed reports. Some anonymous reporting going on to a number of outlets over in Europe that the nukes were moved over to another base in Europe. So I thought that was interesting. So continue to be some troubles in Turkey, and although we don't really hear about it in the news, still a very serious situation going on.
Yes, it is. But if you heard a tweet about it, you know it's true.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I thought this was interesting, and this just kind of goes to, I think, the people who have common sense out there, like all of us. Mike Rowe, from Dirty Jobs, and of course he's got a new show. Somebody's got to do it, and of course he's voiced so many great shows on Discovery, like Crab Fisherman and Deadliest Catch and all those guys. So this guy, he just seems like a good, honest, natural, full of integrity type of guy. He came out, and some folks were saying, hey, get all of your following to get out the vote, that whole celebrity get out the vote thing. And he kind of came out and just he said, you know what, I just don't understand this whole celebrity thing, get out the vote. And he said, do you think if all these celebrities really thought that Trump was going to win, that they would be saying get out the vote? And I'm paraphrasing all of this, but he said, voting is a right, not a duty. And he said, so many people that they're trying to get out the vote to are people that are just uneducated about everything that is going on. And not necessarily is it all that a good of an idea for those who are just absolutely uninformed altogether to not come out and vote. Is it their right to come out and vote? Absolutely. Do they have to when they don't know exactly what's going on? Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe it's not. And so it was he had a lot to say. And Sam will put this up on the Pinterest page. I think we pulled this from the Blaze, but I think it was on actually another website that they pulled it off of. So he said a few things. He's like, even if I thought it would benefit my personal choice, since the country doesn't need voters who have to be cajoled, enticed, or persuaded to cast a ballot. He's like, we need voters that wish to participate in the process, not that need to be enticed or cajoled or persuaded to cast a ballot. And he's like, we've treated this whole process like the last episode of American Idol, which I thought was true. Feels like that's true. So some good stuff from Micro. Really, I thought that was pretty entertaining stuff.
Well, I like the fact that, when you're talking about voting, when I'm voting, if I don't know the particular people or what their platform is, I don't vote for them. I don't vote against them. I don't vote for them. I don't vote for every little subject or every office when I'm voting. I vote for what I know about and for what I have enough time to go in and learn more about the people and what they stand for. But if I don't, then I just leave that blank.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't vote straight ticket, straight party ticket. I go, line by line, and I try to do some work in advance, and look, we have an election all the time for something, whether it's local, state, or national, so it can be a bit overwhelming. I wish that it was kind of all tied in a little bit better, but we do have a lot of different elections, a lot of different times, but try to do some advanced research on it and be up to speed on things. But he's right. Trying to get out the vote, it's get out the vote to these people that do treat it like it's American Idol. And honestly, they have the right to vote. But should you have the right to vote if you're absolutely ignorant of everything?
Just do some research, find out where they stand.
The answer is yes. You have that right under the U.S. Constitution. That was settled over 100 years ago.
Yeah, shouldn't you know a little bit about something if you vote? I tell you, folks, we're gonna take a short little break, and then we're gonna come on back and do a little mortgage talk. See you in a few.
What is it about buying a mattress that leaves you feeling violated? Pushy salespeople, fake sales, the walk of shame out of the mattress store? Those days are over. Hi, I'm Christian von Rickenbach, co-founder of Helix Sleep, where you can buy a mattress online, customized for you, for hundreds of dollars instead of thousands. Go to helixsleep.com, answer a few simple questions, and we build you the most comfortable mattress you'll ever sleep on. Shipping is free, and you have 100 nights to try it out. Go to helixsleep.com/talkradio and get $50 off your order. That's helixsleep.com/talkradio.
For the best and most competitive interest rates and most financing options, including jumbos, down payment assist, refinance, and many, many more, trust Terry Wagner, the mortgage expert on Inside Real Estate Radio. Call the Terry Wagner Supreme Lending Team today at 469-644-4818 or go to terrywagner.com. Supreme Lending is an equal housing lender. NMLS ID number 207089, 6730 Horizon Road, Suite B, Heath, Texas 75032. SML Mortgage Banker Registration, Residential Mortgage Loan Originator.
As News and Information 570 KLIF continues to grow, who better to represent this powerful heritage brand than our listeners? This is KLIF Local Sales Manager Steve Holm. If you have a successful track record in outside sales with a burning desire to be the best, I'd like to discuss a unique career opportunity we have on our sales team. Email your resume to steve.holm@cumulus.com. That's steve.holm@cumulus.com. Cumulus is an equal opportunity employer.
Hey, folks, thanks for joining us. We're back with Inside Real Estate. Mike Kruizinga here, your host and local DFW realtor. We're going to do a little mortgage talk with Miss Terry Wagner. Terry, how's it going?
Good morning, Mike. Doing good. How about you?
I'm excellent.
Good.
I know we're always looking for ways to get people into a house, and sometimes, we need to pick a different program or different pieces to try to help boost somebody into a house.
Right.
And so let's talk about this program that you want to bring with us today.
Right. That's the MCC, the Mortgage Credit Certificate. And sometimes we've talked about debt-to-income ratio before. Sometimes when the debt-to-income ratio is high, this program kind of saves us. In some instances.
Sure.
So I just kind of wanted to highlight a few of the points on the MCC.
And before you get there, so what does this MCC really do? How does it help us?
How does it help us? MCC is designed, basically it's a certificate that you give to your HR department, and you are actually issued a credit on your taxes that allows you to realize more of an income on your paycheck. Okay. So the maximum amount that you can get on that is $2,000 a year, which comes out to $166.67 a month. And how that computes in our loan process is we add that as additional income for you. And then it is something that you as the homeowner will have to renew ever so often. It may be every year, but I don't think it is.
Okay.
Because they're going to base it off what what you owe on the house. So 10 years down the road, you're not going to get as much as what you're getting here in the beginning.
Right.
So they have a simple calculation that they do to determine how much of a credit you're going to get. But you can renew it. You don't have to renew it, but you can renew it every year and just make sure that your HR department has that certificate and can issue you that credit.
And so this can be a great way to get people over the hump
right.
when we're in a sort of a debt-to-income ratio issue
right.
with their loan.
That is correct.
And so even though that doesn't sound like a big amount, you'd be surprised, folks, that can get you over the hump.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It makes a big difference
Huge
in some instances, yeah.
Yeah.
So utilizing the MCC program, you have to be a first-time home buyer. This is not, you can't use it on a refinance or you're selling your current home and you're buying a new one. Can't use it in that situation. First-time home buyer, which means, what's a first-time home buyer definition, Mike?
Well, now, isn't this one going to be only the 2-year or 3-year mark?
3-year.
Okay.
If you have not owned, you've been paying attention.
I have. I've been paying attention in school.
If you have not owned a property in the last 3 years, you are considered a first-time home buyer. Crazy, right?
So technically, it's not necessarily as
yes.
a first-time buyer.
Right. So if
just
you have
in
not
3 years.
That's right. So if you've not owned a property in the last 3 years, you would be eligible for the MCC.
All right.
How do we determine that tax returns? We are going to need to see the last 3 years' tax returns to make sure that there's no mortgage on your tax return. Okay. So we're going to look at that. There is no minimum credit score. So we at Supreme Lending on an FHA loan go down to a 580 credit score. You can use the MCC on that program down to a 580. No minimum credit score required.
And that's huge. And
that's kind of big.
And a lot of the folks that are going to be kind of in that ballpark, are probably, going to need this.
Might need a little help there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We can combine this MCC, and actually in a lot of instances do combine it with the grant programs that we've talked about so many times. So all of the grant programs that we have in our office that we utilize, you can combine with the MCC program. So for that program, we just talked about minimum credit scores. For the grant program, you have to have a 640, so keep that in mind.
Right.
So if we're combining it with one of the grant programs, your credit score does have to be a 640 or better.
Higher.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we can combine those two together and kind of make sure that they complement one another. Okay. The fees associated with the MCC used to be a little higher, but they have reduced the fees. It's a one-time fee added to your closing costs of $500.
Not bad.
That's not bad.
Not bad at all.
It's not bad for a continuing $2,000 credit back to you on a yearly basis.
Right.
So you've recouped that, in the first year.
Exactly.
Okay. But the MCC allows us, like we've talked about, it's saved us many times if our debt ratio is just a little too high and we can't pay off debt. There's nothing there to pay off. We plug that MCC program in and it works. And there's not a whole lot of additional paperwork or underwriting that goes with it. There is a little bit. I believe you have to take a first-time home buyers seminar online that will hook you up with the information to do that as well. But you complete that first-time home buyers education. After you close and fund on the loan, in the mail, we helped a gentleman not too long ago with this program.
Sure.
You get a certificate in the mail after the closing and funding. You take that certificate to your HR department, and they file it so that every week you get more money on your paycheck.
Yeah, it's a win-win. Not only do you get more
thing?
money, but it can be that little bump you need to get into the house, too.
That's right. And this program has been around for a long time, but we just don't utilize it often enough, I don't think.
Well, and I think people will be surprised, how many programs you guys have and are very fluent in. Let's say you just call the average loan officer and say, hey, what's this MCC program? Good chance they probably don't know what it is.
Right.
So that's why you want to give Terry a call.
Right. I had a customer that I talked to just this week that same scenario happened. They were with a different lender. They were with a different real estate agent, switched real estate agents. They sent them over to me, and they were going through the process of explaining, well, I heard about the information on the grant program. So what can you tell me about it? And when I explained the different grant programs to this customer, they were astonished. Well, I wasn't told any of that.
Right.
I was told about this one program that I didn't fit in. So we found them a different one that they did fit in.
Right.
So, yes, please give us a call. In a lot of instances, our hope is to make you a customer for life. So what that means to me personally is I may not be able to help you with a mortgage today, but we're starting the groundwork so that you can be a homeowner in the next, hopefully, 12 months.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, folks, you can't just get this information online. There's so much information out there, and the good information is with the folks who actually utilize that information and practice it on a regular basis, like Terry.
Right.
She's got the information, and she can plug your situation in and figure exactly what you need to do and get you in a home. And it may not even be 12 months. It might be It might be a month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever the case may be. But worst case scenario, 12 months.
Yeah.
And so even if you was sitting there thinking, man, I can never get into a home. My situation is so brutal, it's not going to happen. I bet you're wrong.
Yes.
We get you with Terry.
That's right.
Worst case scenario, 12 months.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
Absolutely. Folks, her number, 469-644-4818. That's her direct line, cell number, website, terrywagner.com. You can always just head on to her website, fill out an application right there. And they can also download the app. Is that right?
Yes.
Yep. What's the app called again?
It's called Mortgage Map. And
Mortgage Map?
I'm gonna bring that next time I come, Mike, the URL, so that everybody will know exactly how.
But it's searchable in the Play Stores and all that.
Yeah, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right, folks, another great segment with Terry. Hey, Inside Real Estate, Mike Kruizinga. Come on back in a few.
Allen Economic Development Corporation is proud to sponsor the 9th edition of the Cumulus Putting Texans Back to Work Job Fair at the Allen Event Center on September 28th, presented in part by Resource One Credit Union. With over 2,500 highly qualified job seekers, 6 employer booths, and promotion from all 7 Cumulus radio stations, this is the hiring event of the fall. Employer booth space is limited. Visit PuttingTexansBackToWork.com today for more information or to buy your booth. That's PuttingTexansBackToWork.com or call 972-708-4251 to learn more.
Not available in all states. Whoa, what do you have there?
It's a Reese and Irvy's frozen yogurt. We just had our robot make one.
A robot made your frozen yogurt?
Yes, the world's first fully interactive robot vending machine that serves 9 flavors of delicious yogurt with 6 amazing toppings. And it's available for an exclusive franchise opportunity.
How do I get my own Reese and Irvy's robots?
It's easy, but you better act now. Locations and machines are going fast. Just go to froyofranchising.com and enter promo code 3030. That's froyofranchising.com, promo code 3030.
The Richard Tonica Insurance Agency in Arlington has nearly unlimited resources when it comes to getting you the best insurance rates and policies for home, auto, and more. As part of the Goosehead Insurance brand, you, the consumer, have the power of choice through the Richard Tonica Insurance Agency Network. Richard can quote over 20 A-rated companies to find the best fit for you, the best policy at the best price. Call Richard today at 817-286-2002. It's the Richard Tonica Goosehead Insurance Agency, 817-286-2002.
Now back to Inside Real Estate. Here's Mike the Realtor.
Hey, folks, we are back. Inside Real Estate, Mike Kruizinga here, your host. Website, InsideRealEstateRadio.com, InsideRealEstateRadio.com. Remember, you can connect with myself for anything related to real estate. You're buying, you're selling, investing. We'll be happy to get you taken care of. We have an excellent team in all categories that can get you squared away in both real estate, insurance, mortgage, as well as home improvement. So anything you need, we can take care of you. You can connect with all of our partners there. And, of course, you can branch out into our social media to catch up on any of these stories that you may find interesting. Those bounce over to the Pinterest page. And, of course, past episodes and past interviews are on the archive page on the website as well. Had some good interviews last few weeks. Dinesh D'Souza was on the show, and Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters was on the show. So had some good interviews. So check those out. If you did not get to catch them live, they're on the archive page. If you want to talk to us, it's time for a little insurance talk. Feel free to give us a call if you've got questions. We've had so much rain lately. Maybe you got questions about water policies as it relates to your home. Give us a buzz, 888-787-CLIFF. And let's get into some talk with our Goosehead insurance extraordinaire, Richard Tonica. How we doing?
Good morning. I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
Excellent. So let's get into it here. What do we got?
Okay. Well, a couple of weeks ago we talked about what does choice look like, and we talked about that for a while. But what I wanted to talk about today was a home policy is not a home policy. It's not all of them are created equal, as you very well know. And I've run into a few people this week or this last week that found out the hard way. And you usually find out the hard way when you have a claim.
Sure.
So I wanted to educate people on what are the different types. And I'm not going to go into absolutely every different type of home policy. That's going to be boring for everyone. And and it's not something that I'm gonna put everyone through. Just because I think about insurance all the time, I know everyone else doesn't.
Right.
So a lot of I'm gonna go over 3 basic types: an HOA, an HOA plus, and an HO3. An HOA is absolutely, without a doubt, the cheapest, and I mean that as far as coverage and price, kind of home policy. An HOA plus is a little bit better, but still you're leaving yourself open for different claims that aren't going to be paid. And we'll talk about those different types of perils.
Okay.
And then an HO3, which is the most common type of home policy throughout Texas. It's kind of a mix between a named peril policy, which a named peril policy means that if it's not explicitly named, it's not a covered peril. So if, for like your flood insurance, flood covers only flood. So that's what their named peril is. But going over this, an HOA is the most very basic named peril policy that there is. It covers 10 things: fire and lightning, wind and hail, explosion, riot, civil unrest, aircraft, vehicles, unless caused by the insured. You can't cause damage to your own house with your car and then expect it to get paid.
Right.
Smoke, vandalism, theft, and volcanic eruption. Can you tell me what's missing there?
Well, hey, we got volcano, and so I think we're good, right? I mean, we're right in the shadow of a massive volcano here in Dallas. Oh, no, we're not.
So the biggest glaring peril or risk that is missing from this list is water. And we've said it many times, most of your claims are going to be water related.
Absolutely.
It's amazing how much damage it can do. And when I tell you that I look at the policy first and then we take care of the price second, this is why I do this. Because an HOA policy, if this is all you can afford, it's all you're comfortable with taking that risk, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of that getting to know you and making sure that I'm doing my best to fit your needs and what you want out of your home policy.
Right.
But this isn't one of the policies that I'm going to come out and say, hey, this is what you need.
Right.
No, it's a great price doesn't mean it's a great policy.
Right.
Thankfully, I'm able to give both to most. But anyway, that being said, it's very lacking in what it covers. Then you go up to the HOA plus, which obviously is an HOA with a little bit more added to what they cover. It's going to be the same thing, but now they cover falling objects, the weight of ice and snow and sleet. So all the, what was it, a couple of years ago where we had all the sleet on the roofs that were causing damage, that wouldn't have been covered by an HOA. But with an HOA, it will. Then we get into the sudden and accidental discharge of water, which is, like we said, is going to be most of your claims.
Exactly. The water heater busts, pipe bursts.
Exactly. And that comes to freezing also. So if your pipes froze and ended up, as soon as it thawed out and then you've got water everywhere, now you're covered. With an HOA, you're not. With an HOA plus, you are. And now granted, these are all just very general, and every individual carrier is going to be a little bit different in how they do this and what they cover, because there are some policies that I absolutely love because they add more into their base policy. But so these are just general guidelines of what is in each kind of policy. And then the last one that's added to the HOA Plus is sudden and accidental damage from artificially generated electrical current. So if you have shorts in your house, your wires get short circuited and start arcing and cause an electric fire, now you're covered. With an HOA, again, you're not covered. You're leaving yourself wide open. Does the HOA cost more? Yes, no, maybe. It really depends. Your price is your price is going to change from carrier to carrier and policy to policy. Sometimes the more coverage that I put on a policy, the better the rate is. And so going in there and looking at that stuff is part of what I do for my customers. If it makes sense to give them more than what they should because the rate is better, not only are they getting a better policy but they're also getting a better rate, then we make that change. But looking at this, that's what we go through, and we kind of go through, where are you leaving yourself open? Where are your potential, where's your risk of having a claim or out-of-pocket expenses? Because that's what we need to focus on, because if you're uncomfortable with having the weight of ice and sleet not being covered, around here it might not be that big of a deal. If you were up north, yes, it's a much bigger deal up there.
Sure.
But anyway, and an HO3 policy is your basic open peril policy. And what that means is, unless it's not specifically excluded, then it's covered. So in my verbiage of the policy, it comes in and says slow leaking pipes are not covered, which honestly, most policies aren't going to cover slow leaks. They are going to be something that is added by an endorsement. And adding an endorsement is pretty fairly common, just to make sure that you're getting the coverage that you want to. Right. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to add more or to the cost of everything, but it does mean that we insure your home correctly. We give you everything. We cover all the bases that we should. And there are basically 4 different kinds of water coverage. Sudden and accidental, which is covered by HOAs and HO3s. Water backup is usually added by an endorsement. There are some policies that is going to be automatically included in the base policy where you don't have to have that endorsement, as well as and foundation. And foundation covers you for if a pipe bursts in your foundation and you have to drill through your foundation to get to the pipe, and then you have to repair the pipe, then you have to repair your foundation also. And a lot of carriers will not cover that. They'll cover the water damage, but they're not going to cover the
repair.
Exactly. Jackhammering into your foundation to get to that pipe in order to repair it. And this isn't the most glamorous, but you need to know exactly what kind of policy you have, because like I was telling you, I had 2 people come in in the past week and are going to sign with me because they had HOA policies. HOA policies aren't always endorsed as a replacement cost. So you may have had wind and hail damage. And although that is covered in an HOA policy, it's not covered as a replacement cost. So when you come in and you have your claim, you expect, if it costs $9,000 to repair your roof, you expect let's say you have a $150,000 house, you have a $1,500 in your deductible, So out of that $9,000, you're going to get $7,500 to repair your roof after you pay your deductible.
Mm-hmm.
With an HOA policy that hasn't been endorsed as a replacement cost, let's say that house is now 15 years old, or the roof is 15 years old, you're going to cut that $9,000 down to $4,500 because you're losing half of that to depreciation.
Right.
So now you go from $9,000 down to $4,500. Take your $1,500 off because your deductible is not going to change. Your insurance company isn't going to look at you and say, "Oh, it's okay. You're already taking $4,500. We'll pay your deductible for you." It's not going to happen.
No. So you're going to get $3,000 for a $9,000 roof job. That's not going to get you very far.
No.
That's not going to cover most of the materials.
Exactly.
It might get close to covering a good piece of the materials, but
you get half a roof or you get all the shingles and go do it yourself.
Do it yourself, yeah. Good luck with that.
And there are a lot of people that like the DIYs. I'm not one of those people myself, and my wife isn't one of those people that wants me getting on the roof.
Yeah, well, so important things to know right here: the HOA Plus, and then the 3. We want the all peril. We want the because we don't want to be limited. If you're a homeowner out there, choice is 100% up to you, and that's what Richard is all about. But honestly, if you want to be covered, you want that all peril, and then but if you're not, you need to talk about these endorsements so that
exactly
the things that typically happen in a home that you can't control, you at least want to be covered for those.
And I have some policies where I don't even have to make these endorsements. These endorsements are already into their base policy, where there's not one kind of water damage that you can't have or that you can have that isn't covered, with the exception of flood. But again, that's its own policy. Going in, you need. We talked about a lot of communication is done by text, but once you get down to the nuts and bolts of everything, finding out what your risk tolerance is, finding out what's important to you, I have to have those conversations with you in order to make sure that I'm presenting you with the best policy for you, because a policy that you want may not be the same policy that I want.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people that I know that all they care about is absolutely if everything it's a total loss. That's the only time that they want to use their insurance, and that's fine. I mean, if that's your risk tolerance, you want a higher deductible, you want to have certain perils not covered, we can do that. I mean, we've got that choice, and we've got the carriers that we can supply that. What I am talking about is coming in and knowing what you're getting, because even with a homeowner's policy, the HOA, the HOA Plus, and the HO3, which one is right for you? I mean, an HOA Plus may cover 90-95% of all the perils, where an HO3 is going to not even cover you for 100%, because honestly, I mean, most carriers aren't going to cover you for 100% of everything. You're going to have to add endorsements. You are going to have to look at adding additional policies like flood, earthquake, something like that, in order to be completely covered, because there is not one policy that is going to be the end all be all. Anything can happen. You're taken care of, because it just doesn't exist.
Right.
And even if you're living in an apartment or your condo, you still have to have those kind of policies, and you still need to have those kind of conversations, because you're still looking at, if you're a renter and you're living in one of the apartments, you're still looking at, if something happens to where your neighbor burns down your little complex or big complex and you lose everything, how are you going to replace everything that you had in your apartment?
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at $10-15 a month maybe
for content
to replace everything that you own, because it took you a lifetime or a few years, to say the least, to buy all that, but you're expected to replace it all in one fell swoop.
Mm-hmm.
And more than likely, the person that is responsible for the fire, I mean, if you live in one of those in an apartment complex that has 8 to 12, their liability runs out quickly, and then you're left out in the cold to replace all your stuff.
Yeah, and that's the important part is, when something bad happens, you want to be taken care of, and you don't want to have to worry about it at that time. And, folks, we'd be surprised how many of us out there have not had a reasonable conversation with our insurance agent in years, literally years. We send the money in, and we don't worry about it. We don't think about it, and then that's on us when something bad does happen. Here to tell you that, look, just take 5-10 minutes, give Richard a call, just what we talked about right there in homeowners insurance. What if something did happen, with your roof and you didn't even know that you didn't have replacement cost? Maybe you've been one of the lucky ones that hasn't had hail for, every spring for the last, gazillion years, and all of a sudden you did, but you found out, you don't have the replacement cost, and you get stuck with that scenario that Richard just talked about. What if you have just an HOA instead of the all peril, and one of the perils happens that is not included in the HOA? You're SOL. You don't want to be that.
No.
So you want to be covered. You want to give Richard a call. You want to get taken care of. His website, richardtagency.com, richardtagency.com, 817-286-2002 is the number, 817-286-2002 is the number. Give Richard a call. Talk about home, auto, the whole package. If you got toys, he'll get you taken care of. Good segment here with Richard Tonica, folks at Goosehead Insurance. Hey, we're going to take a short break. Come on back. Folks, it's Mike the Realtor here from Inside Real Estate, and if you're not listing your property with me, bottom line is you're leaving money on the table. There are over 15,000 agents here in the DFW area, most of whom are part-time and do a few deals a year. Do you want to trust them to sell your home? I think not. Call Mike the Realtor, the radio realty expert from Inside Real Estate on 570 AM KLIF. Promise you will get to me direct. Go to InsideRealEstateRadio.com. Don't sell your home with just anyone. Go to InsideRealEstateRadio.com and connect with Mike the Realtor.
Living in the DFW area, expansive clay soil and extreme weather conditions play havoc on homes' foundation. But thankfully, you can turn to Permapeer Foundation Repair of Texas, who has successfully repaired over 20,000 properties and counting in the DFW area. With the most trusted, tried and true foundation repair methods, trust the professional staff of Permapeer Foundation Repair to take care of your property, and most repairs are backed by a lifetime transferable warranty. Mention Inside Real Estate Radio when calling Permapeer at 214-637-1444 or when booking online at permapeer.com for your Inside Real Estate Radio discount.
Far from the shores of home, two African-American U.S. Army privates fight for their lives on the battlefronts of World War II. The first Black War correspondents fight to cover the perspective of the black soldier. The novel A Private War, it weaves all this and more into an epic World War II era story of friendship, conflict, religion, and redemption. Get a copy of Private War, a novel by Perry Cockrell today, now available on Amazon.com. And tune in regularly to Inside Real Estate Sundays 8 to 9 a.m. to hear Perry Cockrell, attorney at law, as he provides expert analysis of the latest and greatest in legal news. Folks, it's Mike Kruizinga here with Inside Real Estate Sports Entertainment on 570 AM KLIF. Did you know that virtually all of us will experience a fall in the bathtub at some point in our life? Well, statistically, it's true, and as we get older, a fall in the bathtub can spell disaster, as we just can't recover the same as we did in our younger years. Don't let something as silly and preventable as a bathtub fall put an end to all your special plans you have lined up for your golden years. Invest in a Hydrojet walk-in bathtub. Made in the USA and with the lowest step in the industry, Hydrojet walk-in tubs has your best interest at heart. With no commission sales staff or huge warehouse overhead, they build and sell direct to you, saving you thousands of dollars over their competitors. Call Randy, my friend and owner of Hydrojet Walk-in Tubs at 855-980-8827 or go to hydrojetwalkintubs.com. You'll be able to speak with Randy directly, and make sure to mention you heard about it on the radio. And for you veterans out there, there's a grant available for you to cover the majority of the cost of a walk-in tub, making it darn near free. Call Randy at 855-980-8827 or go to hydrojetwalkintubs.com today.
Now back to Inside Real Estate. Here's Mike the Realtor.
Hey folks, welcome back. Welcome to the house. Inside Real Estate, Mike Kruizinga here. Hey, time to do a legal segment. We got our legal analysis expert, Perry Cockrell, here in the studio. PerryJCockrell.com is the website. PerryJCockrell.com is the website. And, of course, if you haven't looked into his book, A Private War, it is available on Amazon. Great book. You should check it out. And how are we doing today, Perry?
Great, Mike. Thank you. It's good to be back.
Good to see you again. I know we're going to get into some legal topics, and I think we were going to talk a little bit about maybe some boundaries and surveys and all that good stuff.
We are. I do want to mention I have a book signing today in Dallas at the Gables 17.
Okay.
From 2 to 4. If you want to attend 1700 Cedar Springs, go to the concierge, and they'll let you up.
Very good.
And there's parking, but I thought I would bring this topic.
That's 2 to 4 today.
2 to 4.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
1700 Cedar Springs, Dallas, and that's the Gable 17 complex.
Gable 17. Okay. Very good.
I believe this topic is really important because there's cases out there. I'm going to mention one case that just came out recently, but it's something that I've dealt with my entire career. And it's for people that buy property, it's very important that you make sure that you're certain that the fences around your property, those are what you want. Those are what you intend to have. That's what you intend to keep. If there's any doubt about that, don't go into that transaction. At least settle that fence issue at the very beginning as to what you want that fence to be, what you intend for it to be, and what the purpose of it for. If somebody else constructed it, what was its purpose?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people buy homes with a fence line not on the fence line because they didn't want the next door neighbor tying into their fence line.
Right.
That will create problems because the next door neighbor is going to claim that little piece is theirs eventually over time, and they will.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've seen that happen, and I've seen that result in some real litigious type cases over the years.
Yeah, and this is a great point, and it's highly contested all the time amongst homeowners, and oftentimes somebody put a fence in at some point in antiquity, and it could be multiple feet off the line.
Right.
It could be 5-6 feet off the line. Now, not in a small subdivision lot, maybe in the larger lots is what I'm talking about, but that's a huge piece of all the way around that you're losing. So it's very important to get those surveys, and even honestly get a new survey, because an old survey, the accuracy of it may or may not, hold true, even though it looks correct now.
Mm-hmm.
You never know.
That's right. Well, this recent case that just came out a few months ago was actually a 4-acre tract located in Tarrant County, which had a fence along it. And then both parties on either side claimed title to that 4 acres. It didn't appear in anybody's deed in the chain going back to the 40s. And so one of them said, well, it's my property because this fence. But that entity or that couple did not build that fence. They don't know who built it. Somebody built it. And so this case became a dispute over who owned that 4-acre tract.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the law allows, they call this the declaratory judgment statute, allows someone to bring a suit under that statute and to recover their legal fees if it's a boundary dispute case. A boundary dispute meaning where is the boundary? But if it's a title issue like this one was, there was a question of who owned the 4 acres with a fence, then you can't use that statute. You have to use another statute, and there's no recovery of legal fees under the other statute if the issue's title. But if it's boundaries, then you do get your legal fees.
Was the 4 acres adjoining both parties' other property that was titled correctly?
It did, and it had a fence, and of course the one side said we get that up to the fence because we've enjoyed and used that property over for these periods of time. So that brings me to my next subject. In Texas, there's a way to get title to property even if you don't have a deed, or even if you have an erroneous deed. And they call this the 3, 5, 10, 25-year statute. And it's an adverse possession statute. And if you buy a piece of property but the deed is mistaken, and they call that color of title, and then you take the property, you acquire it, you use it. There's words like adverse, open, notorious, hostile, continuance, very technical legal terms that make no sense to people when they have to fill out affidavits, but that's what the law says. You can acquire title to that property in 3 years, even if you don't have a valid deed to it, but you have an erroneous deed. And the next method is a 5-year statute, which if you cultivate, use, and enjoy, and then you have to pay taxes to the local jurisdiction, and you take under a deed, except a forged deed. So you can't pass title by a forged deed. So you could then use the 5-year statute. File a suit, you can get a judgment, you own title to that property. Now, you can have a 10-year statute if you have a peaceable possession of 160 acres. and you cultivate, use, enjoy peaceable possession, then you can file suit and get a judgment that you have adverse possession up to the 160 acres. There's one exception. If you under a deed that actually contains more than 160 acres, in that case, then you can settle that dispute and get the full amount that your deed says. And so those are the methods that you can get title to real estate in Texas when you don't have a deed or you have an erroneous deed. Now, you'll see that's what they tried to do in that case involving the 4 acres. But their deed didn't cover all of that 4 acres that was in dispute. So they claimed that, well, my fence, this is where it's really important on the fence, and even just a subdivision, a little home, is a fence. Just because you have a fence doesn't mean that you have adversely possessed that property over to the fence line. That fence is what they call can be a casual fence. And so you have to prove who put that fence up, what the purpose of the fence was, and then that shows that you've adversely possessed that piece of property. And that's how you get around the fence line. So if you walk into a property, it has a fence there, you're not necessarily acquiring adverse possession for property within that fence line, unless it's your intent to do so. Now,
because you didn't establish the boundary lines personally then with the fence yourself?
That's right. And then, of course, according to this case, you can't benefit from this declaratory judgment statute and recover your legal fees because this is not a boundary dispute case. This is a title case involving who has titled the 4 acres. Okay, now that brings me to the new case that came out. I'm not going to talk specifically about the facts, but I'm going to talk about the problem. This is where a tenant moved a boundary line on a lease over and enclosed some additional property within an existing lease agreement. Now, it's not a title dispute because the landlord owns the property on the lease and owns the adjoining property. The tenant just moves the fence line over and brings in a subtenant. Now, the landlord does not realize this is going on for several years and finally figures it out, files suit for a boundary dispute to determine the boundaries of this lease agreement because the tenant is trespassing on property that's outside of the lease agreement.
Okay.
Now, guess what the court rules? Anybody, if you want to. The court holds that the suit cannot be brought because trespass is subject to a 2-year statute of limitations. In other words, the tenant moved the fence line over. The landlord should therefore have figured that out and should have filed suit to stop that. Now, the landlord has a lease. The lease goes on for 20 years. The landlord says, no, wait a minute, I have a lease. I can make you comply with the lease premises. I should be able to make you comply because under the lease you agreed to use this amount. The court says no to that. The landlord says, well, I have a declaratory judgment statute, and that allows me to determine boundary disputes. This is a boundary dispute because you moved and the court says no to that. The court says that, no, your suit really is a suit for trespass to the property outside of the lease, which the tenant is contending is in the lease, but it's barred by the 2-year statute of limitations. So now remember what I was mentioning earlier. There's several ways to get title to real estate. It's the 3, the 5, the 10, and the 25. Now you have a 2-year statute of limitation, effectively.
Well, was the land that he was supposedly the trespassing, was this additional land that the landlord held neighboring the property, or was this
landlord holds the particular tract outside of it?
Outside of it, okay,
right.
I see. Okay, I see.
And I don't want to mention anything specifically about this because the concept is generally mentioning it generally because it happened in this Acre case, and it's happening in another case, and this kind of thing has happened in other cases as well over the years. And the Texas Land Title Association says that the 2-year statute of limitation is the trespasser's best friend. So this is what's happening when a trespass is happening. and a person is trying to file a declaratory judgment action to stop the trespass, but they want the declaratory judgment action to determine what is the lease premises. The Supreme Court, in a case called Eaton a few years ago, was a telecommunications case where the telecommunications industry put a line underneath the owner's land. The owner complained and said, you can't do that. So they did. They actually removed the line. Now, the owner filed a declaratory judgment action to stop it. The Supreme Court said you cannot do that. And so it's that concept of filing a declaratory judgment claim with a trespass that's causing this tension in the use of declaratory judgment when it's being combined with a trespass action. Very legalistic.
And we're going to have to leave it there because we've run out of time. Hey, folks, another great legal segment with Perry Cockrell. Website, perryjcockrell.com, perryjcockrell.com. And we'll have to pick that back up on the next episode. Folks, Inside Real Estate, Mike Kruizinga. See you back here next Sunday, 8 to 9 a.m. We're out of here.